sa maghabong pagtatrabaho, pero wala kang pagkain sa bahay. Narito na ang sagot mga katropa, ang super manok lechon. Napapawi sa inyong gutom at siguradong mapapa-analyze ka dahil sa tender juicy na jumbo pa at siguradong malinis at bagong katay buhat sa farm. Kaya super masalasa at pangmasa pa. Ano pa hinihintay nyo mga katropa? Takbo na sa Super Manok Panteño Siniluan at bumili na. Baka maabusan ka, katropa. Ano? Okay, mga kaibigan, mga katropa, mga kuya, mga ate, abay magandang gabi po sa inyo. Tataka kayo, wala ako kahapon, ano? Meron po tayong nilakad na importanteng bagay, kaya hindi po tayo nakapag-live stream kahapon. Well, ngayon po ay araw ng Miyerkules, ikaw po ng buwan ng Nobyembre taong 2023. At syempre, Wednesday edition pa rin ng programang Tropa. At syempre, ako pa rin ang inyong magiging kasama. Wala nang iba. Pagtitiisan nyo, talagang ano, ROCEL LOPEZ. At samahan niyo po ako hanggang mamaya dahil meron po tayong ilalabas na video, yung pong ginagawang pagdinig ng mababang kapulungan ng Kongreso tungkol po sa usapin dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Ewan ko ba, bakit hindi na natapos-tapos yung West Philippine Sea? Kanina ba talaga yan? Bakit ba naggigirian ng ating bansa at saka ang China? Ano ba usapan ng dalawang magkabilang leader, no, ng Pilipinas, no, na si President BBM at sa China naman si Xi Jinping, no? Ano ba talaga? Ay nako talaga. Okay mga kaibigan, oras ho dyan, alas 6:20 ng gabi, oras sa buong kapuluan. Magandang gabi sa iyo, Luz Biminda. Magandang gabi, Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Nako, buti na lang kanina, hindi po naulanan, no? At kahapon lamang, kagabi, kagabi lang naulan, no? Kahapon, pero hanggang umaga. Pero kanina, hindi naman. Pero makulimlim. Pero umambun po ng mahina nitong bandang hapon. Hindi na natin nakausap ang Pag-asa. Tignan natin sana kung anong kanilang weather forecast. Pero hindi natin, bukas na lang tayo magbigay ng report buhat sa Pag-asa. Okay, so magandang gabi sa inyo lahat mga kaibigan. At una ko nakita sa aking monitor yung aking katropa, yung aking pong cameraman noon sa TV5, si Boss Mark Castro. May palakpakan mo nga, Mr. J. At kasama natin sa technical side, siyempre si Mr. J. Magandang gabi sa iyo, Mr. J. Kumusta na ba? Kumusta na yung pag-aaral? Mag-aaral kang mabuti. Huwag kang tumulad sa iba dyan na pinag-aaral ng mga magulang, abay ang ginagawa, puro panguhuli ng tutube. Alam niyo ba yung tutube? Nung bata kasi kami, tutube, sabi, pag hindi ka marunong lumangoy, magpakagat ka doon sa daddy mo, sa utong. Matututo ka raw lumangoy. Siyempre kami naman mga bata, curious kami, so ginagawa namin, nanguhuli kami ng tutubi noon, nagpapakagat kami. Pero sa totoo lang, natuto ko lumangoy. Nga lang, hindi ko alam kung yun ay galing sa pagpapakagat sa tutubi. Tutubing kalabaw, hindi tutubing karayo, kasi yung karayo yung maliliit, manipis, yung malalaki yun ang kalabaw. Noong araw ho yun, pero ngayon, wala, madalang na ang tutubi dito sa Metro Manila. Noong araw sa amin sa Malabo, no, lalo na doon sa aming school, meron no kasi doon kaming parang mga damo-damo pa, garden, so siyempre doon pumupunta ang mga tutubi. Pero pag wala nang ganon, wala nang tutubi yan. Sigurado sa mga probinsya na lang magkakaroon ng tutubi. Kaya yung mga tutubi, lumilipat na ng lugar doon sa mga mapupuno, madadahon, madadamo. Lumilipat na ho yung mga tutubi. Tama ba yung sinasabi ko, Boss Mark Castro? Ito si Boss Mark Castro, marami ring alam mo ito eh. Ano kung tama yung sinasabi ko tungkol sa tutubi, Boss Mark? Mag-comment ka naman. Komentan mo naman ako kung tama yung boss. At siyempre magandang gabi rin sa ating mga tropa peeps. Sa akin dati rin kasama sa Radyo 5, si Kuyang Lady Tantoko. At siyempre aking na boss, na aking naging boss, ang senior desk editor na si Ma'am Aiza Reniba Cruz, na dati pong taga ABS-CBN. Siya po ang Radio Patrol number 30. Ayaw ko kung tama ako, baka nagkamali na naman ako. At syempre, yung mga nakasama ko rin, no, sa Philippine Eagles, sa aming Central Luzon Region 45. Beng, beng, beng. Yan, sabi yan, beng, beng, beng. Yan.
Siyempre yung aming governor, si Governor Rafael Agkawili. Siyempre yung mga opisyalis doon, yung mga club president, magandang gabi sa inyo sa lahat ng miyembro noon na nakailalim sa Central Luzon Region 45. Magandang gabi sa inyo. At siyempre sa lahat na rin ng region, sa lahat ng club ng the Fraternal Order of Eagles, Philippine Eagles, abay magandang gabi po sa inyo. Siyempre yung ating katropa na taga Malabon City Police Station, si Kuya Gerald Garcia. Yeah, magandang gabi sa iyo, Kuya Gerald. At siyempre po ang Malabon PNP, lahat po ng nandiyan sa Malabon PNP, magandang gabi sa inyo. Siyempre partikular sa Chief of Police na si Police Colonel Daro. Ay, magandang gabi. At siyempre sa ating ding mga tropa pips dyan po sa Tastoda, sa may Tugatog Malabon. At siyempre si Bas Kagawad Sanidad at Pineda ng Barangay Tugatog na muling naupo bilang kagawad. At ganun din sa mga taga-barangay Bayan-Bayanan sa Malabon sa pangunguna po ng muling naluklok na kapitan na si Barangay Chairman Ringo Felix. At siyempre yung number 1 kagawad, si Kagawad Art Valencia. At sa lahat po ng nalalo, no, sila Kagawad Gili Onofre. At siyempre sa lahat po ng mga staff, magandang gabi sa inyo. Okay, alas 6:25 na mga kaibigan, oras sa buong kapuluan, oras sa hudyat. Aba, teka muna, nga sabi ko sa inyo kanina, ano ba pakiwari nyo sa West Philippine Sea? Ha? Kanino ba talaga ang West Philippine Sea? Aba, yun ang mahirap di ba? Hindi natin alam kanino ba talaga, di ba? Dapat yan, actually, ewan ko may higing noon, nasabi yan daw kasi kaya pinipilit ng China dahil binenta raw sa kanila ng parang dating administrasyon. Hindi natin alam kung sino. Basta dati raw administrasyon. Kaya naman ang China parang kumpiyansa, kampanting kanila ang West Philippine Sea. Kaya ano ba totoo doon? Hindi namin malaman talaga. Ako, tayo kasi mga mabababang uri lang tayo. Sila ang nakakaalam dyan, yung mga namumuno sa taas. Kung may pera lang ako nabibili niya ang West Philippine Sea. Para wala nang pagtalunan. Kung may pera kami ni Boss Mark, kami nabibili, magsososyo kami ni Boss Mark. Tapos maggagawa kami ng isang resort. Floating resort. Diba? May floating restaurant, Ang kasama na may floating casino. Ayun ang gagawin namin ni Boss Mark dyan. Okay ba yan, Boss Mark, para sa'yo? Okay, so mga kaibigan, huwag na nating patagalin at tunghayan natin yung ginawang pagdinig ng mababang kapulungan ng Kongreso dito sa usapin sa West Philippine Sea. Siyempre, nandyan yung mga kongresista, mga party list. Una na dyan, si ACT-CIS party list Erwin Tulfo, no? So, alamin natin, ano ba talaga ang usapin sa West Philippine Sea. Narito po.
This meeting is now called to order. And for purposes of the Honorable gentleman from Rizal, the Honorable Tanwatma.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that we dispense with calling of the roll.
Any objection? Chair is none. Same is approved.
At the same time, Mr. Chair, may also dispense with the reading of the minutes and asking for the approval of the same.
Any objection? Chair is none. Same is approved. May we acknowledge the presence of the members of this committee, our Vice Chairman, Manuel Fortes, the Honorable Emilio Tanwatco, the third, Honorable Ramon Gutierrez, and of course, as an ex-officio member, the Deputy Majority Leader from the ACT-CIS party list, Erwin Tulfo. May I likewise request our secretary to acknowledge the guests of this committee this morning.
Thank you,
Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. We acknowledge our guest, Deputy Director General Nestor C. Jerico, Vice Chairperson of the NTFWPS, representing Secretary Eduardo Año.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
The other NTFWPS members, Yusek Ignacio B. Madriaga from the DND.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Senior State Counsel Freddy Ganchun, DOJ.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
ASEC Juabili Racho from the DILG.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
ASEC Julius A. Llano from the DOTR.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Your Honors.
ASEC Assistant Director General Francis Jude Lawenko from the NSC.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Deputy Assistant Secretary Maria Elena Cristina D. Maningat from the DFA.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Major General Fernando M. Reyeg.
Good morning, sir.
Vice Admiral Alberto B. Carlos Pien from the Westcom.
Morning, sir.
Commodore Francisco G. Molilla from the NOLCOM.
Good morning, sir.
Commodore J. Tristan T. Terriela from the PCG.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
And Director Agnes S. Totanes from NICA.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Director Ruben B. Candelaria from the DFA. Assistant Director Alvin C. Malasig from the AFP. Colonel Elmer B. Bongaling from the PCG. Captain Nelson J. Timbang from the PCG. Police Colonel Bobby S. Abaw from the PNP-MG. Commander Brix T. Tumanig from the Westcom. Chief Romel I. Diciano from the BIFAR. And our guest from the media, Mr. Gio Robles from TV5, Attorney Bea Santos from ABS-CBN, and Ms. Bianca Dava from ABS-CBN. That's all, Your Honor.
Good day, everyone. And of course, mga suki na resource people of this committee, welcome back. Before we begin, I would like to request a moment of silence in honor of our Vice Chairman, Palawan Representative Edward Hagedorn, who joined our creator last month. Kong Ed is a well-known environmental crusader, also a very active member of this committee, and was very vocal about his stance regarding the protection of the West Philippine Sea. Last October 22, during the routine and regular rotation and resupply mission of the BRP Sierra Madre station at the Ayungin Shoal, two Chinese Coast Guard ships conducted a dangerous maneuver and collided with an armed forces of the Philippines contracted supply boat, Onaisa May 2. Since then, the Philippines has strongly protested China's action. President Marcos have called on the Philippine Coast Guard to investigate the matter. The Department of Foreign Affairs has filed another diplomatic protest and has summoned the Chinese ambassador. And leaders of Congress have condemned the incident and called on China to be held accountable for its actions. With our very own Speaker, Ferdinand Martin G. Romualdez, saying that the Chinese Coast Guard's collisions with the Philippine boats have placed the lives of passengers in the vessels in danger, and regional peace and stability at risk. As I understand, the government is also studying filing a case against China before the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea over the incident. Tensions are high, and it comes when we are experiencing numerous simultaneous conflicts around the world. The frequent incidents prompted by Chinese vessels in the West Philippine Sea is a serious cause of concern. As I have previously said, our committee is committed to safeguarding the interests of the Philippines and its people. And so we called this meeting to serve as a platform for open dialogue, ensuring that we address the challenges head-on and work towards a peaceful, cooperative future in the West Philippine Sea. In today's meeting, the committee aims to thoroughly investigate the details and implications of the incident, hear testimonies from those directly involved, ensuring a comprehensive understanding of the events, assess the current safety measures and protocols in place for navigating the West Philippine Sea, and collaborate with stakeholders, reinforcing the Philippine stance on upholding international law and territorial integrity. We have invited the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea to brief the committee on the most recent incident between the Philippine and Chinese vessels at the West Philippine Sea. Now, to facilitate the flow of our meeting, we would first request our guests to provide their opening statements. We will first call on the representative of the National Task Force of the West Philippine Sea, Chairperson, followed by the representative of the Philippine Coast Guard. Afterwards, due to the sensitivity of the subject and the risk of the information that may endanger national security, the committee will continue the meeting in executive session. And in accordance with our rules, attendance in the executive session shall be limited to committee members, the committee secretariat, and staff, and such other persons whose presence are required or allowed by the chairperson. On that note, let us begin. And before the chair recognizes whoever who is going to speak for the National Task Force, may I acknowledge the presence of our member, ex officio. Another deputy ex officio member, Deputy Majority Leader from the 3rd District of Iloilo, the Honorable Lawrence Defensor. May the chair would now recognize the Vice Chair Herreco of the National Task Force.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of Secretary Eduardo M. Año, National Security Advisor, Director General, National Security Council, Chairman of the National Task Force for West Philippine Sea, Honorable Representative Neptali M. Gonzalez II, Vice Chair Representative Wowo Fortes, and other members of this esteemed Special Committee on West Philippine Sea, colleagues in the executive branch, ladies and gentlemen, good day to all of you. On behalf of the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea, allow me to extend our gratitude for the invitation and the opportunity to brief this special committee on the significant developments in the West Philippine Sea, particularly with regard to the recent incidents surrounding the rotation and resupply RORE mission in Ayungin Shoal on 21 to 23 October 2023. We are happy to report that the resupply mission was a success. However, the said mission was nonetheless subjected to repeated dangerous blocking maneuvers and harassment by Chinese Coast Guards and maritime militia. Details of these incidents will be reported to you shortly by the Philippine Coast Guard. We'd also like to appraise this special committee that in response to the said incident, the Department of Foreign Affairs summoned the Charge d'Affaires of the Chinese Embassy on 23 October 2023 and personally handed him a note verbal protesting the dangerous maneuvers conducted by Chinese vessels against the Philippine Coast Guards and supply vessel. Our embassy in China also delivered a demarche to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, while our delegation to the Code of Conduct negotiations in Beijing likewise raised the issue. In addition, we would like to inform the committee that several countries, Australia, Canada, Denmark, the European Union, France, Germany, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea, Sweden, the United Kingdom, and the United States have expressed support to the Philippines, while at the same time condemning the unlawful and dangerous conduct of the Chinese vessels in the Philippine waters. We would like to emphasize that all have called on China to absorb peace and its stability and to follow a rules-based order in the WPS in accordance with the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. Most have also urged China to follow the 2016 arbitral award. Mr. Chair, members of this committee, the NTF-WPS remains steadfast in protecting our sovereign rights and jurisdiction in WPS. We certainly consider the recent incident a very serious concern, and we are one with you in exploring workable solutions that will uphold our rights while maintaining peace and security in WPS. Again, thank you very much for this opportunity, Mr. Chair and honorable members. Maraming salamat po. We may now call on the Philippine Coast Guard for their presentation, Mr. Chair.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the Commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard, Admiral Ronnie Hill Gaban, I am Commodore J. Tabiela. I will be presenting on the part of the Philippine Coast Guard the escort mission that we conducted in support of the rotation and the supply mission of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Before I give you the details of the resupply operation, I would like to inform you that on the part of the Philippine government, we deployed 2 Philippine Coast Guard vessels and 2 charter boats of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. The intention is that for each charter boat, there will be a Philippine Coast Guard that will escort and see to it that it will be able to safely conduct and complete its mission in doing its resupply. At least for the appreciation of the honorable members of the committee, sir, I prepared this operational area, at least for you to visualize how the resupply operation is being conducted. On the point B, that is our staging area. That is what we call as the rendezvous point for the Philippine Coast Guard to meet those charter boats that are also being deployed by the Armed Forces of the Philippines. And then if those 2 Onaiza Mays will be arriving in Sabina Shoal or Skoda Shoal, that will be the time that the 2 Philippine Coast Guard vessels will also escort these chartered boats going to Ayungin Shoal. It is important to note that a day even before the Onaiza may arrive in Sabina Shoal or Skoda Shoal, we have already monitored the presence of the China Coast Guard vessel, China Coast Guard 4301, shadowing Philippine Coast Guard vessel 4409. So it means that even before we reach the Ayungin Shoal, the China Coast Guard vessels are already present in Sabina Shoal. Please play the video, sir. At around 05:55 in the morning of October 22, while the entire supply contingent is already moving towards Ayungin Shoal, we monitored the presence of the Chinese maritime militia doing this close maneuver. It is important to note that the vessel bound number of this Chinese maritime militia, 0003, that is the first vessel that we have documented conducting close maneuver, is also the vessel that will collide with the Philippine Coast Guard vessel BRP Cabra later. Around 6:06 in the morning, with a distance of 9 nautical miles east of Ayungin Shoal, the BRP Cabra was already corralled by the China Coast Guard vessels and the 2 Chinese maritime militia vessels. This is actually the reason why BRP Cabra was already separated from Unay-Zamay 2. Because on a few minutes after this is what's going to happen. Next slide. Those 2 slides would explain why Unay-Zamay was all by herself when she collided with China Coast Guard 5203. It's because, as I said, Philippine Coast Guard vessel BRP Cabra was already corralled by the Chinese maritime militia. On the other hand, the other Unay-Zamay and BRP Sendangan is also being separated by the China Coast Guard vessel. So, as what you can see from the video, the intent of the Chinese Coast Guard and the Chinese Maritime Militia is to really separate the Philippine Coast Guard vessel from that chartered boat. But despite of the dangerous maneuvers conducted by the Chinese Coast Guard vessels and the Chinese Maritime Militia, Unay-Zamay 1 and BRP Sendangan, they were successful in escorting this chartered boat to enter Ayungin Shoal at around 7:50 in the morning of October 22. The Unay-Zamay 1 was able to enter the shallow waters of Ayungin Shoal. Around 8 a.m., 2 hours after Unay-Zamay 2 collided with the Chinese Coast Guard, in short, she is already damaged, and then she's also presumed to have issues on her seaworthiness. I think the other question that was been asked by the media is that is the reason why Unay-Zamay 2 wasn't able to deliver the supplies, was it because of her damage? I think this video would answer. Because the main reason why Unay-Zamay 2 wasn't able to proceed to Ayungin Shoal in completing her mission to deliver the supplies, it's because the Chinese Maritime Militia vessels and the Chinese Coast Guard despite of her damaged condition, the Chinese maritime militia still escorted her away, going further from Ayungin Shoal. So this is actually the main reason why Unaiza May 2 wasn't able to complete her resupply mission. And since BRP Cabra is the designated escort of UM2, she really intended to escape from being trapped of this Chinese maritime militia vessels. But as you can see, it is very dangerous and quite very difficult for the commanding officer of BRP Cabra to be able to find her way out and escort back Unaiza May 2. In this video, you can see that because of the persistence of the skipper of BRP Cabra, she really wanted to escape from being entrapped of these Chinese maritime militia vessels. But the Chinese maritime militia vessel 0003 decided to come near. That's why it collided on the port quarter of BRP Cabra. Although there are also people who are saying that it is the Chinese maritime militia vessel that is on stationary, and it's the Philippine Coast Guard vessel who collided with the Chinese maritime militia. But we have another video to show the playback of the voyage data recorder of BRP Cabra and the Chinese maritime militia. The white one on the center is a BRP Cabra, sir. So we were doing our right turn to escape from being entrapped of these Chinese vessels. And then you can see the yellow-green na nawala lang sir dahil nag-turned off sila ng AIS nila. They were the one who really turned hard right. That's why it collided on the port quarter of BRP Cabra. Around 10 a.m., the Armed Forces of the Philippines decided to call off the mission for Unaiza May 2 to complete the resupply mission for that particular chartered vessel. Probably the Chinese also realized that we are already too far away from Ayungin Shoal, since they were successful in veering away the charter boat at a distance of 11.4 nautical miles from Ayungin Shoal. That's only the opportunity that the BRP Cabra was able to moored alongside with Unaiza May for the Philippine Coast Guard to assist her and to check on the damages that she incurred because of the ramming incident. But as you can see from this photo, sir, you can just imagine how difficult it is for the Philippine Coast Guard vessels and Unaiza May 2 to still proceed with the resupply mission, considering the fact that the Chinese Coast Guard have strategically dispersed all its vessels and its Chinese maritime militia for us to be prevented in going forward to our destination in Ayungin Shoal. Around 11:54 of October 22, we transferred some of the passengers from Unay because for safety precaution to make sure that the passengers will be safe. Because as I said, we are anticipating that there is an effect on the seaworthiness of the vessel because of the damage that she incurred because of the collision. It's important to note as well that despite of our completion of the mission for the Unay and the Philippine Coast Guard vessel, as we move away from Ayungin Shoal at a distance of 11 nautical miles, we still monitored two Chinese PLA Navy vessels 631 and 500 within the vicinity of Ayungin Shoal. Around 3:50 in the afternoon, we already arrived Sabina Shoal, but you can also still find the Chinese Coast Guard vessel still shadowing us from Ayungin going to Sabina. And the only time that they left Sabina Shoal was when we already arrived there together with the entire resupply contingent. This was the damage sustained by BRP Cabra. Our freeboard was that collided with the Chinese Maritime Militia, left us with a very deep dent. And then on the fender guard, there was also a dent that damaged the fender guard of the port quarter of BRP Cabra. In total, we detected 5 Chinese Coast Guard vessels who actively participated in blocking and in conducting dangerous maneuvers to prevent the Philippine Coast Guard vessel together with the AFP chartered boats to complete the resupply mission. And then the Chinese Maritime Militia vessels, we physically monitored, meaning these are the 8 Chinese Maritime Militia vessels that were also deployed by the Chinese government to carry out blocking operation for us to be prevented in completing the resupply. And then on our AIS, we also detected 8 Chinese Maritime Militia. And then, as what I've showed you a while ago on the previous slide, we also detected 2 PLA Navy vessels. So in total, they have deployed 5 Chinese Coast Guard vessels, 16 Chinese Maritime Militia vessels, and 2 PLA Navy vessels. Where in the Philippines, we only deployed 2 44-meter Coast Guard vessels and 2 AFP chartered boats. For the Beijing's actions against the Philippine Coast Guard vessels in terms of the radio challenges, BRP Sendangan have challenged the China Coast Guard vessels for more than 15 times. And then from the China Coast Guard vessels that challenged BRP Sendangan, there were 17 times. And for BRP Cabra, we challenged the China Coast Guard vessels and Chinese Maritime Militia vessels for 64 times. In this return, they challenged also the BRP Cabra for only 14 times. There were 4 events that we documented, the dangerous maneuvers conducted by China Coast Guard vessels 21551 to BRP Sendangan, China Coast Guard vessel 21556 to BRP Cabra, China Coast Guard vessel 5204, Chinese Maritime Militia vessel 0112, 0110 to BRP Sendangan, and the China Coast Guard vessel 5204 to BRP Sendangan. We also noted 5 instances that the Chinese Maritime Militia vessels actively participated in blocking the Philippine Coast Guard vessels. Chinese Maritime Militia vessel 003 to BRP Sendangan and Unay 1, Chinese Maritime Militia vessel 00227 to BRP Cabra, Chinese Maritime Militia vessel 003 to BRP Cabra, Chinese Maritime Militia vessel 0112 to BRP Sendangan, and Chinese Maritime Militia vessel 0010 to BRP Sendangan. For the collision, of course, we had recorded the China Coast Guard vessel collision 5203 to UM2 and the Chinese Maritime Militia vessel to BRP Cabra. That ends my briefing, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much.
Before we proceed, may I just acknowledge the presence of the following House members: the Honorable Khalid Dimoporo as one of our Vice Chair, the Honorable Ray Reyes, member, and then the author of House Resolution 781 from Party List Gabriela, the Honorable Arlene Brosas. Before we proceed, in my opening statement, I made mention of the fact that the President ordered, or at least ordered, the investigation by Coast Guard of the incident. I just want to inquire so that we will no longer be repeating, asking you, have you investigated? Yung bang what you have shared with us today are part of that, are a result of your investigation, which you have already submitted to the President?
Mr. Chair, what I presented to you a while ago is only the chronological order of incidents that happened or transpired during the resupply mission. With regard to the investigation report that we submitted to the President, we intend on the part of the Philippine Coast Guard and also with the concurrence of the National Task Force West Philippine Sea to have it presented during the executive session, Mr. Chair.
Can you give us a copy later? Should you in the executive session, if you have already submitted the same to the President? And may I ask the Director Herreco, you made mention of the conduct of code of conduct ongoing with in Beijing right now, because during the last time that we had an executive session, we were promised that should there be a result of the code of conduct meeting, we will be furnished with at least briefing of the same or a copy of the same. Yun lang, tanong ko lang, have we finished with the code of conduct or still ongoing thing?
Yes, Mr. Chair. A representative from the Department of Foreign Affairs, the one we had last month, Mr. Chair, that was the 40th meeting. And this was a subsequent meeting they had in Beijing, which is the 41st. Most probably the representative from DFA could further explain the details of the meeting that they
would you are you free to discuss it right now or during the executive session? Executive meeting rather.
Sir, we have talk points that we can share during this session. Pwede naman. Should I proceed?
In the executive meeting. Session. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So, recognize natin. We'd like to ask the media people who were present during the incident if you'd like to make a statement right now so we can recognize you, to share what your experience.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Gio
please identify yourself.
I'm Gio Robles from TV5. I am aboard BRP Cabra with Ms. Bianca Dava of ABS-CBN. So we personally witnessed the collision of the Chinese maritime militia vessel at around 8:12 a.m. At first, may narinig kami ni Bianca na sound, parang metal po siya. And then at that time, nasa port bow po ako. Nagmo-monitor kami ng Chinese Coast Guard at that time na hinaharangan at iniikutan yung BRP Cabra. And then from there, pumunta kami agad sa may port quarter which is on the sa likod ng BRP Cabra kung saan itong Chinese militia vessel number 0003 ay papalapit na po sa BRP Cabra, seemingly closer and closer. And then at that time, nakunan po ng camera namin na bumangga siya talaga the second time doon sa sinasakyan naming barko. And then I think the video was shown earlier here. Ako yung naka-red. And then at that time, sa stand-upper kami ng ABS-CBN, covering din doon sa likod na part, left sa likurang bahagi ng BRP Cabra. So from our end po, I think twice kaming nabangga ng Chinese maritime militia vessel.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Bianca Dava from ABS-CBN News. I was also on board BRP Cabra during the October 22 resupply mission. And as mentioned by Gio, we were rammed into twice by the Chinese maritime militia vessel with bow number 0003. Yung unang pagbangga po sa amin was not recorded on camera because sa part ko naman po, my cameraman and I were supposed to do a spiel sa front po ng ship when the CMMV collided into our vessel. So after po noon, pumunta kami sa likod ng barko and naka-record po kami noon. So yung second na pagbangga po was really caught on camera. And to add to what Sir Tayala said earlier, yung BRP Cabra po was stationary that time nung nabangga po kami ng CMMV 0003.
So I would now recognize the Honorable Tulfo, who was first to list himself to be to propound the question to any of the resource people. Honorable Tulfo, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Plain and simple, with the video that you presented here, in this incident at the West Philippine Sea, the Chinese Coast Guard is toying with us, toying with you. In short, pinaglalaruan po tayo, well, pinaprovoke po tayo, and we have been so patient this past several months, or shall I say, year or two. Ang tanong ko po, paulit-ulit na po nangyayari ito. Well, without telling me right now, may I ask the Philippine Coast Guard, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Navy, National Task Force on West Philippine Sea, ilang beses na ho nangyari ito, parang cat and mouse na nangyayari doon tuwing resupply? Meron na po ba kayo, on the first instance na hinaharang-harangan ho ang mga barko natin, nakapag-isip na ba kayo ng action plan? Without telling me now, all I want to hear is, yes, you have. Kung meron na ba kayong operational plan, what to do next? Because we will keep on resupplying our troops in Ayungin Shoal. Ang gusto ko marinig, meron na po ba kayong plano na pag-usapan? Ano ang gagawin ninyo pag nangyari ito? Because we don't want to hear this anymore. Haharangin na naman ho tayo. The same thing. Hindi naman ho tayo babarilin, babanggain lang tayo. So what do we do next? Meron na po bang plano? Either the NTF, WPS can answer this, or Coast Guard. Meron na po ba? Wag ho ninyong isabihin sa amin kung ano. But do you have a solution to this problem? Pangatlo na ito, pang-apat na ito, laser pointing, binombahan ng tubig, ngayon binangga. Ano po, meron po ba o wala? Can you please tell us? Salamat po.
Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Chair, honorable members of this committee, on the part of the National Task Force on West Philippine Sea, we do have our plan on these issues at the West Philippine Sea.
So are you saying, Mr. Chair, are you saying that meron na po? So we have to anticipate now na sa susunod na resupply, baka mas matindi pa ho ang gagawin. Dati, laser lang, hinabol-habol lang ho tayo, binangga na tayo ngayon, baka sa susunod ay talagang sagasaan ng barko natin.
have you come up with a plan on what to do next? Yung matibay-tibay po na plano. Kasi I am very sure 100% uulitin at uulitin na naman ho ito. Madyadyaryo na naman ang insidente na ito. Paulit-ulit na lang po nadyadyaryo, na hinabol ang Coast Guard, kawawa ang Coast Guard, ang mga barko natin. Have you, meron na po tayong plan or action na matibay-tibay hinggil ito sa actions ng China?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The National Task Force on West Philippine Sea is continuously conducting meeting and planning scenario war games in the conduct of our conduct of operations and the fighting of our sovereign rights and sovereignty and jurisdiction at the West Philippine Sea, Mr. Chair.
I understand that, Mr. Chair. My point is, yung actions po na sinasabi niyo other than diplomatic protest, sawang-sawa na po yung mga kababayan ho natin. I mean, diplomatic, note verbale, patawag yung ambasador. Wala ho eh. This is all falling under deaf ears. Ibig sabihin, hindi pinapakinggan. Hindi rin ho umuubra. So, ang sinasabi ko lamang ho, yung concrete action, siguro mamaya ho sa executive session, gusto naming malaman kung ano ho ba itong matibay-tibay na action. Pangalawa ko pong katanungan, Mr. Chair, if you would allow me, ay gaano po kabilis yung mga sasakyan natin? Ilang knots Philippine Coast Guard ang inaabot ng barko po ninyo? How fast is it? Gaano kabilis din yung barko ng China? Kasi naghahabulan ho kayo eh. Ngayon, talagang aabutan ko kung ang takbo nyo na lang ay 5 knots, tapos sila ay nasa 20 knots, talagang maabutan ho kayo. Gaano katulin ang takbo, pati yung mga resupply ship po natin, ilan po ang takbo nitong speed?
Mr. Chair? Yes, sir. On the part of the Philippine Coast Guard, our 44-meter vessels can run as fast as 22 to 25 knots. However, since our primary mission is to provide escort, security escort to the chartered boats, sir, we have to adjust our slow speed so that we can be able to pace with chartered boats, sir.
How fast, Mr. Chair, our resupply boats, yung inaarkila natin, gaano katulin naman po ito?
I would like to refer that to the Commander of Western Command, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. The Unaisa May has a cruising speed of 7 knots only, Mr. Chair.
Wala po ba tayong makuha, Mr. Chair, na sasakyan na matulin-tulin naman? Kung 7 knots, pwede ko pong mga swimmer ho natin, 7 knots na ho yung takbo eh. Tapos 7 knots, talaga maabutan ho yan. Kahit siguro pagong, aabutin po yung resupply natin at 7 knots. Kawawa nga din naman ang Coast Guard. Ano po? Magiging siya po yung panangga at 7 knots. Wala po bang matulin-tulin naman? Siguro hanap tayo ng mga 12 or 15 knots na para makatakbo naman ng mas matulin kaysa sa 7 knots, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. That's part of the options that we are considering, sir. The ideal speed for us for the RORE is 15. So we're looking for platform that can go 15 knots at least with a draft that can enter the shore, Mr. Chair.
Okay, another question, Mr. Chair. Napansin ko po, sinabi ho ninyo 16 ang kanilang militia vessels, 5 ang Coast Guard. Alam ko ho, yung Coast Guard natin, di ho tayo makapagpadala ng 5 Coast Guard din dahil yung quantity po ng sasakyan ng Coast Guard. Pero ang tanong ko po, wala po bang plano na dagdagan din yung resupply? Parang nga, kasi para ho itong tinitignan ko ho ito, parang offense-defense, parang sport lang ho parang football di ho ba? Parang cat and mouse, kailangan ho siguro natin na marami ding dadalhin doon, or in short, decoy. Can we do that? Kaysa sa 2 lang ang papadala natin, bakit hindi tayo mag-arkila na 10 para sumakit din ang ulo nila, hindi nila alam kung sinong hahabulin nila. Can we do that, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, we can discuss that in the executive session. possible actions that we can take, sir.
Isa pa ang katanungan, Mr. Chair, if you'd allow me. Yung mga barko po ba ng Coast Guard, do we have a firepower just in case, Mr. Chair? Kasi po napansin ko parang ang dala-dala lang po ng Coast Guard natin ay mga Armalite. Alam niyo ho, masakit mahong sabihin, pag nadaanan kayo, mabuti hindi ho kayo nadaanan ng mga Abu Sayyaf. Ang Abu Sayyaf nakakumpit, may mga dala po mga RPG. Tayo ho, Armalite, ano ho ilaban natin? Are we armed with something other than mga rifles and sidearms ang mga barko po ng Coast Guard, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, I would like to refer that question later during the executive session, sir.
I will reserve my other questions later, Mr. Chair, because these are sensitive questions and it has to be asked in the executive session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tulfo. Just to acknowledge the presence in our committee hearing, the Honorable Representative from Lone District of General Santos City, the Honorable Ton Acheron. And next to, before we recognize other members who would like to propound questions to our resource people, may I request, recognize the Honorable Arlene Rosas for the purpose of delivering her sponsorship speech insofar as House Resolution 781. 781 is concerned, which she is the principal author.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, matagal na po yung ano namin yung aming resolution, and it's good to know na ngayon po ay madidiscuss ito amiss dun sa mga nireport kanina. Nag-escalate na siya So from laser pointing po, ito yung nais naming masabi kaugnay dito sa this is the parang na supersede na ng events. So Mr. Chair, my dear colleagues, good morning po. We in Gabriela Women's Party have filed this House Resolution 781 to investigate and call out China's provocation and aggressions in the West Philippine Sea, particularly the pointing of military-grade laser last February 6 against the Filipino crew of BRP Malapascua, which at the time was conducting a rotation and resupply mission along Ayungin Shoal. Now, we firmly assert that the Philippines has sovereign rights over the Ayungin Shoal, Second Thomas Shoal, as it is part of the country's 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone or EEZ and continental shelf as defined in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea or UNCLOS and upheld by the United Nations Arbitral Tribunal in The Hague in 2016. However, Chinese officials have been stubborn in their imaginary claims, even resorting to gaslighting over this incident. Now, Mr. Chair, sa halip na tigilan ng Beijing ang mga aksyon na maaaring makapagpalala ng tensyon sa West Philippine Sea matapos ang insidenteng ito, lalo pa itong naging agresibo at nag-astang bully sa atin mismong teritoryo. Kaya po kanina yung presentation on the BRP Cabra kung saan may banggaan na naganap. Patuloy ang naging konstruksyon ng artificial islands at may naitalang mga panibagong kaso ng harassment sa ating mga mangingisda. In defense of national sovereignty and patrimony, the logical and level-headed recourse that must be taken is the path towards the militarization of the West Philippine Sea. Instead of bringing in more foreign military powers into the fray. Hindi po solusyon ang pagpapasiklab ng military exercises kasama ang US, Japan at iba pang dayuhang puwersa para tugunan ang agresyon ng China. The current situation should not be used as pretext for further military build-up by any foreign power. This should not be a free pass for warships to sail around our seas. Dapat po pangunahan natin sa ASEAN region ang consensus building para sa demilitarization ng West Philippine Sea at iba pang teritoryong target ng China at US para sa kanilang geopolitical interests. At the same time, We must continue bringing these incidents at the international stage through formal filing of diplomatic manifestations. Now, Mr. Chair, we hope this committee will come up with resolutions and recommendations along these lines. Maraming salamat po.
Next to interpolate any of the source people is our Vice Chair, the Honorable Fortes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to everyone here. I would address my question to anybody who can, but if my question would entail an answer that would elicit response putting in at risk security concern, you may opt to answer during the executive meeting. My question is just to put it on proper perspective. When exactly did the claims, arbitral claims of the Chinese government and the Philippines started? It's a way back, but when exactly, at what year did it start? These conflicting claims on the territory. Anybody can give us an idea. Kailan pa po ba ito nagsimula?
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, with respect to the question of Kong Fortes, Your Honor. So his question is, when did this claim of China in the West Philippine Sea started? To recall, we filed the arbitration case last January 22, 2013. And if you take a look at the incidents that were presented to the arbitral tribunal, there was, for example, the harassment made by the Chinese vessels in Recto Bank in 2011. And of course, we know about the Scarborough Shoal standoff in 2012, etc. And then we also presented evidences of the destruction of the marine environment by Chinese fishing vessels all the way back to 1998 in Scarborough Shoal. But we can all trace these illegal actions of China in the West Philippine Sea starting the year 2009, when they submitted to the United Nations Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf a map that shows the 9-9. So that was in 2009. They protested the joint submission for an extended continental shelf by Malaysia and Vietnam in 2005. They protested that. And when they protested that, they submitted to the UN Secretary General a map that shows the 9-9. So that's in 2009. But tracing back this 9-9, because there's also a statement of facts by the tribunal in its ruling, that this 9-9 actually first appeared in the official maps of China in 1948. So the 1948 map of China, you can see it also in the arbitral award, Your Honor. So it first appeared in 1948. So the world, in their official maps, no, there are some maps, private maps before that, 1930s, etc., that would also show this 9-line, sometimes 11-line, etc. But when it appeared officially in the official map of China in 1948, this 9-line, it encompasses almost the entire South China Sea. And by virtue of this 9-line, as explained by China in its 2009 note verbal, it is claiming all of the maritime features inside the 9-line, as well as the relevant, the adjacent waters of these maritime features, meaning their territorial sea, and all adjacent waters that are inside the 9-line. So maybe we can say, Mr. Chair, that the official map, which started in 1948, that's the time that China has officially claimed most of the West Philippine Sea. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that information, ma'am. Okay, so we said it at 1948, but physical claims, incidents we could recall started sometime in 2009, 2011, 2013. But if you would recall, previous to this, we have the American bases in the Philippines. And because of their presence, would you agree that the presence of these bases has been a deterrent to the physical claim of this Chinese government, considering that they have the 1-9 line since 1948? Just thought from the military, probably. Could it have served as a deterrent to this Chinese military in coming over to the area because of the presence of our American military bases in the Philippines?
Thank you, Your Honor. If we would look at the, I'm Undersecretary Badriaga from the Department of National Defense. So if we would look, sir, at the behavior of the Chinese, they started claiming those islands, particularly within our territory, when the bases basically left the country. Although there have been some claiming of islands with China, with Vietnam in the paracels, but when they came in within our EEZ, it's basically they took opportunity when the U.S. forces left the country. So it can be assumed that during the time of the Americans in the Philippines, they also provided a deterrent presence for Chinese incursion within our EEZ. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Yusek Madriaga, for that information. Now, with that in mind, we can very well anticipate the continuous aggression of the Chinese military in the area, considering that vis-a-vis our military strength, the Philippines is way far behind the strength of the Chinese government, Chinese military. As Representative Tulfo has indicated already, even our existing vessels as to speed pales comparatively to the military vessels of the Chinese government. So I think this is now an issue on military might and strength. That's why we are in this position. I have some more questions which I believe would elicit answers that would affect national security. I would reserve my questions during the executive meeting. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the resource persons.
For his questions, I'd like to recognize the Honorable Dimaporo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most of my questions are actually, I'll address it in the executive session, but just as follow-ups, I'd like to ask what exactly are the diplomatic manifestations that we have, our government has taken after, I think, the arbitration ruling. So I'd like to know what exactly has our government been doing in the international community. I think earlier dates were mentioned, 2009, 2011, 2012. After that, did the Philippines stay silent in the international community? I'd like to put that on record, Mr. Chair. So perhaps I can ask anybody from our research persons here or the DFA.
Sir, the timeline, sorry, sir, I'm Deputy Assistant Secretary Elena Maningat from the Department of Foreign Affairs. Sir, we could submit a fuller context since the question.
Can you speak nearer to the mic? We cannot hear your beautiful voice.
Thank you, sir. The question contemplated from 2016 up to today, so we can submit a fuller report on that. But we have convened the bilateral consultative mechanism with China after 2013, during the presidency of President Duterte, after, 2016, President Duterte, and we continue that dialogue platform on a bilateral platform. And we've also started engaging countries with like-minded positions on a rules-based order on UNCLOS. We've convened 9 maritime dialogues. We started maritime dialogues with the United States, the United Kingdom, the EU, with India, the ROK, Japan. We continue in Vietnam, and we continue as well the existing platforms with Indonesia. That's all to convey the need for a rules-based order in the South China Sea and in all oceans, in all waters. And we found that to be a good platform to engage with, even in countries that don't have a stake in the South China Sea, and the importance of having a convention that everyone adheres to. Sir, and then we could submit a fuller report on the numbers of notes verbal that we filed since 2016 and the number of engagements that we've had with China, and we can submit this to the committee, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to request the DFA to submit to our committee comprehensive report. But please correct me if I'm wrong. After this arbitration ruling that we had during the time of the previous administration, the mode of engagement that we have with the international community is bilateral talks with China. We did not use the UN or any international organization. We did not use the ASEAN. We're simply making dialogues. There has been no formal documentation, nor formal manifestation as, a member of an international community on our complaints against China in their action in the South China Sea and West Philippine Sea. Am I correct in saying this?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I neglected to mention the continuous engagement in the joint working group on the declaration of the Code of Conduct on the South China Sea. This is an ASEAN-led mechanism and an ASEAN-China dialogue where the incidents in the South China Sea have consistently been raised by the Philippine delegation, and the Chinese delegation has responded as well. During the 41st, which I think was one of the questions for honorable members of the committee earlier, the 41st meeting that was chaired by Beijing, the Chinese delegation raised this issue October 22. The collisions, which they represented as the fault of the Philippines. And of course, the Philippines took its right of reply and presented the documentation shared with us by the Philippine Coast Guard and demonstrated clearly to all members of the JWG that it was China's dangerous maneuvering that caused the incidents. So we think that that platform of engagement is there. I think it wouldn't be correct entirely that we haven't engaged in all platforms. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, the second I'd like to ask the DFA or maybe our resource persons here. We are limited, at least in our country, on the engagement of China against our Coast Guard and in our maritime waters. I'd like to know if we also can request a report from the resource persons on China's activities in the other claimants of the so-called 9-dash line, so that we can ascertain whether these hostilities are predominantly against the Philippines or is equally, they're equally as hostile to other claimants also, such as Vietnam. I think you mentioned Malaysia and maybe even Brunei. Can we request that from the our resource persons, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, the National Task Force on West Philippine Sea can provide the materials to the Honorable Representative Dimaporo regarding the other actions being conducted by China at the South China Sea and West Philippine Sea to other claimants, Mr. Chair.
And can you also purchase the committee itself?
Definitely, yes, Mr. Chair.
And secondly, Mr. Chair, third, regarding documentation, I'd like to ask our media personalities that were here. When the incident happened, did they fear for their lives?
Personally speaking, Mr. Chair, Gio Robles po again from TV5. Personally speaking, hindi naman po. Because as you can see in the video, pumunta pa kami doon sa part where the Chinese militia vessel hit yung BRP Cabra. Our goal there is to witness and to cover the resupply mission. And at that time, nakuna naman namin yung second na pag-collide ng Chinese militia vessel 0003. So fearing for our lives, siguro, for my life, siguro hindi ko na yun naisip as a journalist and being a Filipino.
Hi, sir. Same here po. I did not fear for my life during that time. I just don't know why, but siguro more on mas nagulat po, na shock because the last resupply mission that I joined in, lumapit lang po yung maritime militia vessels and yung China Coast Guard vessels sa amin. But during the last resupply mission, October 22, nabangga talaga kami. So I was more shocked po.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Chair, again to our media guests, if they have satisfactorily documented the incident that happened. That's one. And secondly, since they're in the industry of, video and capturing all of that, what's their assessment of our ships or the ship that they were using? Do they have the capability also to properly document such engagements with foreign vessels, especially from China? As a video speak, 1,000 words. So if you get it all documented na hostile talagang Chinese vessels, it's much better than reading it in print or in a report.
Mr. Chair, regarding your first question, I think satisfied naman ako na nakuna namin yung buong pangyayari with the last resupply mission. In my part, it was my first resupply mission with the PCG and the AFP. With your second question, I think the government is in the best position to explain kung ano man yung capabilities ng BRP Cabra or BRP Sindangan.
Sir, I believe that personally, ABS-CBN News also covered thoroughly the resupply mission. We don't have the copy of the video here, but the second collision was really caught on camera. I was doing my spiel that time, and nakuhanan po talaga yung second na pagbangga sa amin ng Chinese maritime militia vessel. For your second question po, in my personal observation, in terms of the size and the number of vessels, we may be mas konti po tayo, mas maliit po yung mga vessels natin compared sa China. But I can see that our troops are still, yung paninindigan talaga nila na ipaglaban kung ano yung atin ay nandun po. And I guess our authorities can also speak more about the capabilities of our vessels. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll leave my questions regarding the capabilities of our vessels to the executive session, but I just want to state also that I'm against any escalation of hostilities between two countries. And what we see is happening in Israel against the Palestinians is very similar to what's happening with us, where you have a very strong military force versus, like a underarmed civilian population. The best thing we can really do is to document, in my personal opinion, document the aggression of the Chinese against the Filipino people, and hopefully get the sympathies of the international community. And I ask this regarding video documentation, whether or not we have the capability of doing so. Because, social media is a very strong platform, especially now. And when we see what's happening in the Gaza Strip, between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And I'm just curious if it's only our media personalities that are capable of getting video documentation. And if we can discuss this later on in the executive meeting. If our ships, if our soldiers have body cameras, if our ships have videos, recordings, whether or not that is open for the public to see. In my personal opinion, it should be. The Filipino people should know exactly how aggressive or non-aggressive the Chinese vessels are against us. So I'll take that point further in the executive session, Mr. Chair. I would like to ask just one more request, and that is during the budget deliberations, our colleague Representative Edsel Lagman was asking for a map, which I was surprised that we didn't have. And this map was the map of the Philippine claim of the West Philippine Sea and the Chinese claim on our sovereign territories and which islands fall on the Chinese claims. I was very surprised that that map is not available, that we had to, I think we had to suspend the approval of someone's department's budget until the map can be made available. So I don't know if that map is in the possession of this committee. If it's not, I'd like to request that our resource persons submit to the committee secretariat a copy of that map so that for all members to access. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there a map that you can submit to us?
Mr. Chair, we will work on it. We'll get a reference from the NAMRIA, the National Resource Mapping Resource Agency, and we're going to share it to the committee, Mr. Chair. Actually, we were able to provide a copy to Honorable Lagman immediately after the hearing. Yes, Mr. Chair, we'll provide it to the members of the committee.
The chair would like to recognize one of our members, the Honorable Roman Romulo from Pasig. For his questions, I'd like to recognize the Honorable Party List Anak Kalusugan Representative Ray Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These are just a few questions probably addressed to the DFA and to the armed forces. This one pertains, I believe, to the Mutual Defense Treaty that we have with the United States. Now, my understanding and the publicly accessible document of the Mutual Defense Treaty is that these are guidelines in the event of an armed attack. However, what is happening right now is we're seeing that they are using what is known as some sort of gray areas on how to interpret what an armed attack is, because probably they're not using any bullets or any other military grade type of weapons, although the laser could be constituted as such, but that is still a gray area. So we have the laser attack, we have water bombardment, and now we have collisions. I know that we had this discussion around May of this year on how to clarify what constitutes an armed attack against the Philippines on which the Mutual Defense Treaty is going to be triggered. Does anybody in the armed forces or in the DFA have any report on what constitutes this, what constitutes now an armed attack to us, so that we could trigger the Mutual Defense Treaty?
Mr. Chair, we will let the DFA answer the query of the honorable member of the committee, then followed by the Department of National Defense.
You may proceed.
Thank you very much. The copy of the Mutual Defense Treaty that's publicly available is correct. It is triggered by a armed attack, and the definition of armed attack is something that is defined differently in many other documents. That's why there are clarificatory discussions between the Philippines and the U.S. government on what this would constitute. But as to the and gray zone tactics is also defined differently by very many countries. So there's no common lexicon on what would trigger what. But I think on the specifics of the U.S. and the Philippine discussions under the MDT, it's clarified by the Mutual Defense Board, the Security Engagement Board, and I would defer to the Department of Defense in this question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on the Article 51 of the United Nations, where they define what is an armed attack, but they have set a very high standard when defining the armed attack. It has to have the gravity and its effect should be as such to be considered an armed attack. Actually, the United Nations is always referring to the U.S. versus Nicaragua, but this, and some other cases, but still the definitions are carries a very high standard of definition before a country can invoke self-defense by citing Article 51, citing the definition of armed attacks. And I think China also understand that at the very high standard of definition. That's why we can see their behavior is always below the threshold of such definition, sir. And that put us basically more on legal questions, sir, than actually whether we can actually invoke Article 4 of the MDT, sir. But on our discussion with the US and our other partners, well, trying to clarify other characterization on whether all of these things would fall under the definition of armed attack of the MDT, sir. So the discussion with our partners is ongoing, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what is coming out is that because of the strict definitions of what is an armed attack, the aggressors are actually exploiting these strict definitions for them to conduct these dangerous maneuvers. Would it, Mr. Chair, would it properly serve both the purposes of any parties within the Mutual Defense Treaty to have a more ambiguous definition of an armed attack in such that any type of aggression that could be a threat to life and property, in the case also of our reporters who came in there, if the definition was more ambiguous so that we will be able to have that flexibility to get to trigger or to exercise these provisions in the Mutual Defense Treaty, would that serve our purpose better?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, sir, MDT is not the only means available to us to address all of these things. Probably in the executive session, we can further explain why China is explaining their action as law enforcement operation. And under the ambit of law enforcement operation, they are following a specific playbook, particularly the use of force continuum, where we can see that they're following a specific particular action, and based also on that use of force playbook, we can see that they still have a lot of flexibility to conduct a more aggressive action in the future to address our continuous ROCEL. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, last few questions. We were discussing a while ago about defining actually the rule of law on the rule of order in the South China Sea and the West Philippine Sea. I believe that by having this rules and this law is basically to equalize each and every country's rights to these. However, it has to be said that the one who has influence on how to define what's just equal rights, who currently has this way on how it is redefined, is it usually those who have a greater level of influence in the global order? Or is this something that when it is discussed, each and every country actually has the same weight in terms of their contribution on how the law is dictated? Because normally it's actually those who have a greater level of influence that dictates what equal really means. could I get the opinion of those who are participating in these discussions on how much weight does the Philippines really have when it comes to equalizing it to the terms that is favorable to our country?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can categorically say, sir, that legally, the Philippines is on the right side of the law. But even during the beginning, starting from the Scarborough Shoal standoff, we have China was able to propagate this idea of gray zone operation. It is a concept introduced to explain what is happening, the Chinese behavior in the West Philippine Sea. And basically, it is a concept that we are not prepared to respond to. That's why we are trying to negate that term gray zone in the department. We are propagating not to use it anymore and cite the Chinese behavior or the violation for what they really are. And every action actually violates a lot of international law. What is happening is they're violating collision regulation, which the Coast Guard can actually explain. Their other aggressive behavior basically violates what is written in the UNCLOS as well as the arbitral ruling. So what we are doing right now, and I totally agree with Representative De Maporo to highlight this by documenting this, and we have been doing that since the time of Secretary Anyo as head of the National Task Force on West Philippine Sea, because by highlighting that, internationalizing videotaping, documenting everything, we would increase the reputational risk to China, and that was not done before. And the lesser the risk for China, the more aggressive they become. But internationalizing it is basically adding reputational cost to China, and they don't want that. And I think the best manifestation of our diplomatic effort as well as our documentation and showing it to the world is that now a lot of countries are expressing their support to the arbitral ruling, whereas before, even after it was passed in 2016, no other countries basically is citing the arbitral award as our basis of our claim in addition to UNCLOS. But now you can see a lot of countries are expressing support, and that is hurting the reputation of China, and that puts the country on solid legal foundation on our claim and our activities in the West Philippine Sea. So although physically we cannot compete with China, but on the legal as well as in diplomatic and political arena, I think the Philippines is setting the way for other Asian claimant countries in the West Philippine Sea. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, last manifestation and I guess questions is that I do agree with Congressman De Maporo and Congressman Brosas that engaging the global community so that they may be able to witness the kinds of actions that is happening in the West Philippine Sea does pose a reputational risk for China. In that now they are being isolated, they're considered a pariah because of their aggressive actions. Having said that, I believe that the development of reputational risk is not so much within our control as because it is dependent on the appraisal of the global community on the severity of the situation in the West Philippine Sea. And so I do wish to manifest my support again also to increase the minimum credible deterrence that we have, not only for our Coast Guard, but for our armed forces, because at least those are within the control of the state of the Republic of the Philippines. So that is all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Before the chair recognizes the Honorable Tanwatco to be the last member to propound question to any of the resource speaker, I understand that the media personnel, the 3 media personnel have a flight to catch in the performance, work-related flight to catch. So we can excuse your being present right now, and we'd like to express our gratitude for your presence and for sharing your experiences with us during that day. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ano? The chair would like to correct himself after Congressman Tanatco. The chair will recognize the Honorable Charon, after which we will go on executive session. The Honorable Tanatco may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, during the last deliberations of the budget, the House of Representatives, led by our Speaker Martin Romualdez, made a decision to reprioritize or even realign certain items in the budget, specifically the confidential and funds of certain agencies, two agencies that are more attuned or more concerned with national security, our national defense. The committee would want to know whether this decision of the House of Representatives had any effect on the our resource agencies, specifically the National Task Force, the Philippine Coast Guard, including the DFA, and if there was any effect, what effect would did this decision have on your agency, and what steps have you done, if any, to further your concerns considering the decision of the House of Representatives? Maybe we can start with the Mr. Chair, the Philippine Coast Guard, which is at the forefront of this incident.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Philippine Coast Guard, I think the intention of the House of Representatives and also with the Senate to boost our funding would definitely support our operational capability in performing our role in the West Philippine Sea. But as to the details, I'm not yet authorized to disclose that operational details, sir.
So, sir, there has been effect, and the effect has been positive.
Well, Mr. Chair, the effect will still be felt next year, since the budget has yet to be passed for fiscal year 2024, Mr. Chair.
But in line with this, the Philippine Coast Guard is preparing your, let's say, wish list or your additional requests in line with that realignment or reprioritization.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. If you're asking if we have already anticipated the positive impact of our increase in our with our fiscal budget, I definitely believe, sir, that it has a tremendous impact to the Philippine Coast Guard in performing our mandates, not just in the West Philippine Sea, but in other parts of the country, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, can we hear from the Department of National Defense?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, sir. Of course, sir, any addition to our resources or allocation would be a welcome development for us. And you can be sure, sir, that these additional resources would be put into good use in defending our sovereignty, sovereign right, and our jurisdiction and our national integrity, sir.
Anyway, just to inform you that while the House had passed already and had already transmitted to the Senate the General Appropriations Bill, but as you know, it takes two Chamber of Congress to have it approved, and we have to hurdle the bicameral conference committee. So the budget for 2024 is still in progress. Now, I think what the Honorable Tanatco is saying, that in the light of the fact that there was a decision of the House led by the Honorable Speaker to realign certain confidential and intelligence funds of several agencies, for that matter, to concerns particularly of our capability in protecting our our rights in the on the West Philippine Sea. So may we suggest to you that as soon as possible you communicate the amount, the combined amount may not be enough to cover all your needs. So it is very important for us to know and for you to communicate which of these needs are more in keeping to your immediate priorities, so that you can communicate it with us, so that perhaps through the BICAM we can make certain adjustment, so that we will be the both houses of Congress will be able to fund yung ano yung talagang priority na kailangan nyo, particularly sa West Philippine Sea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lastly, from the Department of Foreign Affairs, I mean, I don't know if you are part of the so-called recipient, but if ever, will there be an effect in terms of your diplomatic relations to the international community?
Sir, the DFA budget will be deliberated on November 9 in the Senate. But for the House, thank you very much, sir, for the support we've received for the budget we submitted. I believe there was 50 million in the confidential fund aspect for the Office of the Secretary there. As to whether or not it's specific to the West Philippine Sea, I can't really say. But we did also make a submission on recommending in support of the request of our Representative Lagman on engaging on more activities to promote and raise awareness of the 2016 Arbitral Award with our partners, which we've put to good use, we believe, and we've resubmitted it as well in the budget for 2024. And it's also been submitted to the Senate. So whether or not it's part of confidential fund or as a specific fund for the DFA to be used in accordance with the GAA, then we're open to any arrangement that can be made. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I have other questions, but I'll reserve it during executive meeting.
Honorable Acharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to address the question to our source person from the DFA, if there's a representative from the DFA, Mr. Chairman. Unless this is already asked before I came in, because I came in late. I'd like to know what is the status of our protests or the multiple protests that we have lodged with the UN. In each of the activity that our not so friendly neighbor is conducting in the West Philippine Sea.
Thank you, sir. Just to update, we have filed as of October 31, 2023, 467 notes verbal addressed to China. That would be 124 under the current administration and 388 under the previous administration. As to the status, sir, of a protest in the UN, I believe this is the Senate resolution as well on that. Sir, we've, I think there were, if I recall correctly, there were 5 actions that were requested from the DFA, and we can submit a report on that. Whether or not a resolution will be filed in the UN was one of the actions that was recommended. And I think that would be for the UN General Assembly. We can report on, provide status on that as well, please.
Can the committee be pleased be furnished with the status or improvement of the multiple protests that we have so far filed? Because I am seeing a number or litany of protests, but there has been no action yet on our protests. Do you agree with us? With me?
Sir, we can provide not every protest is responded to in the same way. So there's no one-is-to-one correlation. Usually protests, our protests as well are made in as an omnibus filing, especially in particular radio challenges. So the same is done by the government of China to us. So there's no one-is-to-one correlation, but we can submit status on the matrix on the responses to our protests.
By the way, which division or office in the UN is taking care of every protest that we have filed?
Sorry, sir. The protests are filed against the government so it's submitted to the government in question.
Okay.
It's not submitted to the UN.
Okay.
So
okay. So Other than the protest that we have filed, is there any other course of action that we have pursued in relation to these activities in the West Philippine Sea?
I'm not sure if I'm addressing your question correctly, but there is greater respect now for the 2016 Arbitral Award. Based on our records, there are 26 countries that have outwardly supported our position on the 2016 Arbitral Award. And in addition, 32 countries have used the award itself as the basis of their interventions at the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea in the context of the question of climate change and sea level rise. And it's also been used in the filing of baka magkamali ako sa country, Maldives versus Mauritius. So from our perspective, there's greater recognition of the importance of the award as an element of international law, and that includes countries that have not specifically recognized the award. So they've used it in their own legal filings without publicly stating their position on the award. So for us, that's a good thing. That includes as well other claimant states in the South China Sea. They haven't publicly stated support for the Philippines, but they've used the award in their own filings in international law. So it's a great contribution of the Philippine government to the practice. So, yun po.
So anyway, we have concluded the visiting forces agreement with recently with Japan. What is the impact of the conclusion of that agreement with Japan? Is that going to enhance or maybe improve our maritime security capabilities in the face of the so many activities in the West Philippines? Maybe I can address that to the DND.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, sir, our partnership with other like-minded countries who support the concept of a free and open Indo-Pacific, and basically Japan has provided us with essential equipment, sir, to increase our maritime domain awareness, like radars, ship for the Coast Guard, even surveillance aircraft. So our partnership with Japan has really contributed immensely to our capability to increase our maritime domain awareness, meaning we are more aware of what's happening in our exclusive economic zone and in our territorial seas. So with that, in terms of physical assets, they have contributed much to our capabilities, sir.
Anyway, this is a visiting forces agreement, right, Yusek?
It's still a reciprocal access agreement, sir.
Okay, so
it's a little bit lower than a SOMPA or BFA.
So would that mean that they will be sending maybe succeedingly their troops here to make a joint exercise with our Filipino counterparts?
Actually, sir, right now with the current setup, sir, they are just sending troops as observer and participating in humanitarian and disaster response activities during Balikatan, sir.
To sail with our Filipino Coast Guards to block the shipping vessel or the vessel of the Chinese?
That would still have to be discussed in the future as the partnership progresses.
In the light of the many activities by the Chinese, what is now the policy directions moving forward by the DND or by the government?
In a nutshell, sir, the way we address what is happening in the West Philippines, sir, is basically multi-directional, sir. First, we should not only look at what is happening physically in the West Philippines, sir, because the response of China to what we are doing is not only limited to their physical activity. So we also have to look at their coercive action against our economy, which in the past they have done so with our agricultural products. So basically, sir, our track in dealing with the West Philippine Sea is first, we should try to sanction through our economy, because right now the state of our economy, even after the pandemic, is very vulnerable. So Chinese coercive action against our economy would still a great concern for us. Another response is, of course, alliance management, not only with the US, but with other like-minded countries that also believe in the concept of a free and open Indo-Pacific, and those that believe that what we are claiming is based on UNCLOS as well as the arbitral ruling. And of course, the third track would be to strengthen our armed forces, as that would include our Coast Guard. So if we can manage all of these things, which are all iterative and interrelated, I think we can make a better response to what is happening in the West Philippines.
By the way, do you see, from your perception, Yusek, do you see any impact on our economy, China being our trade partner, in fact, our biggest trade partner, in the light of these incursions in the West Philippine Sea? Anyone from the resource persons?
Mr. Chair, can we ask the representative from the Department of Trade and Industry, being a member of the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea?
You can proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Janice Dimayakyak from the Department of Trade and Industry. As of the moment, sir, I don't have any accurate data regarding the amount of trade we have with China, but China is in fact one of our biggest trading partner. It may have an economic impact. So as mentioned by Yusek Madriaga earlier, we need to balance that economic impact with our next steps or actions. Thank you, sir.
I'm through, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
We will, in a little while, we will begin with our executive session. And as I have said a while ago, our committee members, the secretariats, and key personnel from the task force on West Philippine Sea will be allowed to stay. We will suspend the meeting for 2 to 3 minutes to allow the secretariat and legislative security to secure the conference room.
Okay, so yun mga kaibigan, napanood natin, napakinggan natin yung ginawang pagtalakay ng Kongreso tungkol doon sa usapin sa ating West Philippine Sea. Tulad yan, meron nagpatunay ng mga miyembro ng media na ay 2 times daw na binunggo yung kanilang vessel doon sa may West Philippine Sea. Yung sila'y sumama doon sa sinagawang ocular. No? So, bakit? Tanong, bakit ginagawa ng mga taga-China yun? Kasi nga, ang pagkakaalam nila, kanila ang West Philippine Sea, hindi sa atin. Well, dapat nga talaga palakasin po yung ating mga kasundaluhan, no? Yung ating mga pangkaragatan, maging ang Air Force, no? Yung pangkalawakan, panghimpapawid. Kailangan talaga palakasin yan para tayo binamatay. Parang tinatawaran tayo ng China kung kaya naman, bakit hindi naman lumaban, no? Ewan ko lang ako. Alam mo, Pilipino matatapang yan hindi naman yan papayag ng aapi-apihin. Well, tingnan natin mga kaibigan kung gusto pa mangyayari sa ginagawang pagtalakay ng Kongreso, kung anong kahihinatnan ng ginagawang pagdinig na yan. At saka dapat talagang bigyan ng budget dyan at saka kuhan yung ating Philippine Coast Guard. Para naman pagdating doon sa karagatan, hindi naman agrabyado kumbaga sa ever mag-aabot man, hindi naman maagrabyado. Okay mga kaibigan, alas 8:13 na po ng gabi. At nanonood pala si paring Bayan Jogrades ko. Nasa ka ba pare? Nasa Pangasinan ka ba? Nasa Region 1, Sambales? Saan ka ba nandun ngayon? At gayon din si Kuya Guillermo Pangatungan. Nanonood po, buhat po sa lalawigan ng na Lapu-Lapu City dyan sa Cebu. At gayon din si Mark Castro. Sabi sa atin ni Boss Mark Castro, wala ako alam sa mga tutubi. Yung kanina po kasi namin tutubi. Boss, tatalakayin natin. Siguro susunod mga kaibigan, pag-usapan natin yung journalist na binaril, no? Sa isang lalawigan, sa isang probinsya, no? Na ang dahilan daw sabi, parang ano yata, inggit, di ba natin? Alamin natin. Ayan, tapos puro Chinese daw ang customer. Okay mga kaibigan, alas 8:15 na ng gabi, Philippine Standard Time. Pasamantala po kay Ma'am Marini Lagura, maraming salamat ha. Si Chef Marini Lagura. Muli po mga kaibigan, at sa oras na alas 8:15 ako yung naging kasama, ka-jamming, kakosa, kabarangay, katropa, kakuya, kaate, ROCEL LOPEZ. Magandang gabi Pilipinas at mapayapang magdamag. Magandang gabi po. Nagbabasa ka ba sa notaryo ng gun owner o nakikinig ka pa ba ng radyo ba ang iyong pasensyo ngayon at hindi siya ng iyong ulo ay mapapakinggan nyo na sa iyong mga sakong batas hinggil sa pag-iingat ng baril o firearms. Dahil online na tayo, mga kamilenyo. Kaya manood, makinig dito sa Millennial Online TV.
Rider, sumalpok sa
Kaya
parte ng
i-follow,
responsible gun owner,
like,
the PNP Civil
subscribe,
Security Group would
at
like to
i-share na
advise all
mga
firearms
katropa.
holders to renew their license to own and possess firearms and firearms registration within 6 months before its expiry date. Tumawag na at makipag-ugnayan.
Be a responsible gun owner.
One Gun Pilipinas ang sagot mga katropa at kagangers. Tayo ituturo sa inyo ng One Gun Pilipinas o OGP ang lahat ng legal na paraan at proseso upang ikaw ay maging isang responsableng gun owners. Ano pa hinihintay nyo mga kagamers? Sali na sa One Gun Pilipinas ngayon na.
Now, we are
Tinlakay. Biggest destruction of dangerous drugs worth 1.
rebisahin, opinyon, malawaking, aksyonan. Kasama si ROCEL LOPEZ, ang inyong katropa sa pagbabalita. Dito lang sa Millennial Online TV. Tutok na mga katropa!
Barangay, pangunahing unit ng pamahalang lokal kung saan dito pinag-uusapan ang bawat sinalot ng mga residente ng bawat barangay. Dito rin pinag-uusapan ng mga piling halal na opisyal na barangay ang mga proyekto para sa kanilang barangay. Kumustahin natin ang panunungkulan ni Kapitan dito sa Dama Barangay sa Millennial Online TV worldwide, ang katropa ng bawat barangay.
Ating tinatapos ang ating pagpupulong. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo at tapos na po ang ating session. Adjourn na po tayo.
Ikaw ba'y nag-iisa? Nalulungkot? Dahil iniwan at ipinagpalit? Niloko? Mga minamahal. Kung ngayon, i-type sa inyong mga cellphone, Facebook o YouTube man ang Millennial Online TV. Dahil nasa Millennial Online TV na ang online realista ng bagong milenyo, si Randel Villanos.
Sana'y di magmaliw kung dati kung araw nang di pang bata sa piling ni nanay. Nais kong mauli ang awit ninang mahal. You are the one who makes me happy when everything else turns to gray. Walk on through the rain. Walk on through the rain. Though your dreams be tossed and low.
Haharanahin kayo ni Randel ng iba't ibang awitin para maibsan ang inyong inip at kalungkutan kahit nasaan man kayo.
Hanggang sa tumanda. Come on! Matanda na, sana'y di tayo magbago.
At pwede rin kayong makidulit kay Randel tuwing Huwebes ng hapon. Ano pa hinihintay nyo mga kamilenyo? Tawag na!
Araw-araw ikaw ang gusto kong
Pinaiting, pinalakas ang bagong news online TV ng bagong milenyo. Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita.
Hi, this is Pangilari ka doon. Nananawagan ako sa ating mga katropa, no? At mga kaibigan, mga kababayan, na palaging tumutok sa Millennial Online TV. At yan ay pinangunahan at yan ay pinangangasiwaan ng aking kaibigan na si ROCEL. At ang mga nanunood dyan ay hindi bobo!
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, telas ang sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyang ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatak tutok sa simoy at sa langit bagaw, ay hinatang tulakaw, isang pagkayang minamahal, ang isang lang matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang may di magtitindig, luman ang araw ng warhabit pagsinta, mo'y langit sa piling ko, ang higaya ng pagkay mga amin, at mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Sa lahat ng buo-buo ng Millennial Online TV at sa lahat po ng sumusuporta Maraming salamat po. Millennial Online TV is now signing off.